Ravi's alarm rang before the sun came up. The sky outside was still a pale shade of gray, the kind that comes just before the first light breaks through. He sat up on his thin mattress, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. His small room had only the basics: a wooden desk, a flickering fan, and a photo of his mother smiling from a corner shelf. Today was not an ordinary day. Today was the day his life could change. He stood and looked at the calendar. The date was circled in red ink, June 3rd, the day of his job interview. He had dreamed about it for weeks. It wasn't just any job. It was a position at Singonia Enterprises, one of the biggest companies in the city. The role was for a junior analyst, and it came with a salary that could lift his entire family out of poverty. His mother coughed in the next room. He walked quietly to the kitchen, filled a cup with warm water, and handed it to her. She was sitting on a worn-out chair, wrapped in an old shawl. "Are you nervous?" she asked, her voice soft and tired. He smiled. "A little. But I'm ready, Ma. I've studied everything. I even practiced with that old mirror of yours." She chuckled weakly. "You always were a dreamer, Ravi. But you work hard. That's what makes dreams real." Ravi's family didn't have much. His father had passed away when he was just 10, and since then, his mother had worked as a tailor from home. They lived in a narrow street lined with crumbling buildings and tangled wires hanging like vines. There were days when they had to choose between buying rice or paying the electricity bill. Despite everything Ravi had studied, he had topped his school, then earned a scholarship for college. Nights were spent reading under a single bulb, days were spent helping his mother sew or deliver clothes to neighbors. He didn't complain. He believed hard work would one day open a door. And now the door was almost in front of him. He wore his best shirt, white though a little faded, and a tie he had borrowed from his neighbor Uncle Mahesh. His shoes were polished, though the soles were worn thin. He carried his file with documents, degree certificates, recommendation letters, and one neatly written resume he had typed at a nearby cyber cafe. He stepped out into the morning light. The street was waking up. Tea vendor was lighting his stove. A group of children played with an old tire. A beggar slept on a bench, curled up like a cat. Ravi waved goodbye to his mother, who stood at the doorway, hands pressed together in silent prayer. "All the best," she whispered. The journey was long. He took a crowded bus from his neighborhood to the city's business district. He kept checking his watch, counting down the minutes. The interview was at 10 a.m. and it was only 7:45. He had time. But he wasn't taking chances. He had mapped the route. He had practiced answers to common questions. He had read about the company's values, its recent projects, and its CEO, Mr. Arvind Singhania, a self-made billionaire who had started his empire with a single textile shop. As the bus rolled through the busy streets, Ravi closed his eyes and imagined the future. He saw himself in an office, in a crisp shirt, solving problems, leading meetings. He imagined buying his mother a new sewing machine. He imagined moving out of their cramped home and into a small, clean apartment with windows that let the sun in. He was just one interview away. The bus reached its final stop. From there, he had to walk the last half-mile. He got down, checked his file one last time, and began walking with purpose. He passed tall buildings, people in suits, and delivery bikes zooming past. Then, just as he turned the corner onto Ashoka Avenue, something happened. A loud thud. Someone had collapsed on the pavement. An old man, perhaps in his 70s, had fallen near a bench. His clothes were simple, his hair white, his hands trembling. People walked by. Some looked. Some didn't. But no one stopped. Ravi did. He glanced at his watch. It was 9:15 a.m. The office building was just 15 minutes away. He had time, but not much. The old man was groaning softly. His eyes fluttered open, then closed. He looked pale. Ravi knelt beside him. "Sir? Can you hear me?" The man didn't reply. Ravi looked around. "Someone call an ambulance," he shouted. No one responded. A few people looked, then hurried on. He made a quick decision. He placed his file down, rolled up his sleeves, and gently helped the man sit up. His own hands were shaking. "You'll be all right," Ravi said. "I'm here." As he reached for his phone to call emergency services, something inside him shifted. The interview, the dream, the future was all waiting just around the corner. But this man needed help now. And Ravi couldn't walk away. Clouds had been gathering all morning, but no one had expected the rain to come down so suddenly, so fiercely. Within minutes, the city turned into a blur of soaked umbrellas, honking cars, and hurried footsteps splashing through puddles. Ravi stood under the narrow roof of a closed shop, shielding the old man he had just helped from collapsing completely. His shirt was wet at the shoulders, and water dripped from his sleeves. He looked at his watch, 9:28 a.m. He had 32 minutes left. The ambulance dispatcher had promised to send help, but traffic was heavy and roads were flooding fast. Ravi helped the old man lean against the wall. The man's breathing had steadied, but his skin was still pale and his hands shook. "Thank you," the man whispered, his voice barely audible through the rain. Ravi smiled. "I'll stay until help arrives." "Don't worry." The man opened his eyes, clouded with age but still holding a glimmer of awareness. "Why are you here?" "You look like you're on your way somewhere important." Ravi paused. "An interview. The biggest one in my life." The man stared at him, blinking slowly. "Then go." Ravi shook his head. "You needed help? That's more important right now." The man gave a faint nod of appreciation, then slowly closed his eyes again. The rain showed no mercy. Cars rolled by, water spraying from their tires. Ravi removed his file from under his shirt. It was slightly wet now. Corners had curled. He carefully pressed it flat again. The interview was just a few blocks away. If the ambulance came soon, he might still make it. Then, in the distance, he saw a car pulled over awkwardly to the side of the road. Its hazard lights blinked in the downpour. A flat tire. Someone stepped out, an old man, thinner than the one beside him, wearing a soaked kurta and clearly struggling. No one was stopping. Ravi looked at the man he was still helping. "Sir, stay here. I'll be right back." He ran through the rain, reaching the car in seconds. The driver had opened the trunk and pulled out a spare tire but was fumbling with the tools. "Let me help," Ravi said without waiting for permission. The old man looked up, confused and exhausted. "Beta, you'll ruin your clothes." "They're already ruined," Ravi laughed softly. He knelt on the wet ground, water soaking through his trousers. His hands worked quickly, loosening the bolts, removing the flat, lifting the car just enough to slide the spare on. Took him 7 minutes. He had done it before many times when his uncle's scooter used to break down during college days. As he tightened the last bolt, he realized how cold his hands had become. His shirt clung to his skin. He stood and stretched his back. The old man was speechless. "No one else even looked at me," he said, wiping his glasses. "Everyone just passed by." Ravi offered a smile, the kind that says, "I didn't do much." Then he remembered. The ambulance. He turned sharply and ran back to the first old man, but the stretcher was already there. A paramedic was helping him into the vehicle. The man looked around, searching, then spotted Ravi. He raised a weak hand and gave a smile Ravi would never forget. "You didn't have to stop for me," he said, his voice louder now. "I did," Ravi replied, stepping closer. "Take care, okay?" The man nodded as the doors shut behind him. The siren wailed, and the van disappeared into the traffic. Ravi stood alone in the rain now. He looked at his watch. 9:51 a.m. His heart thudded. The interview. He grabbed his file and ran. Through puddles, past honking cars, past people sheltering under plastic sheets. He didn't stop. He didn't let the cold or the wetness slow him down. The glass building of Singania Enterprises finally came into view, tall, shining like a mirror through the mist. Ravi pushed the heavy doors open and stepped into the sleek, polished lobby. The receptionist looked up, startled by the soaked young man standing there, clutching a wet file. "I have an interview," Ravi said, catching his breath. "For the junior analyst position. My name is Ravi Prakash." She looked at the clock. 10:03 a.m. She hesitated. "I'll check." "Please wait." Ravi sat on a bench in the corner, dripping. He opened his file. The resume was damp. Ink smudged on one of his certificates. His heart sank. He had missed the exact time. A few minutes passed. The receptionist returned. "I'm sorry, Ravi. Panel just left. They waited until 10 o'clock. But you were scheduled first." Ravi stood slowly. "Is there any way?" "They had a full list of candidates. I don't think they'll reconsider." He nodded silently. "I understand." She looked at him kindly. "I'm really sorry. You seemed very prepared." He gave a small smile. "Some things are more important." He turned and walked back into the rain, file pressed to his chest. Outside, the sky had begun to clear. Clouds were breaking apart, and faint sunlight touched the glass towers of the city. Ravi didn't cry. But as he walked slowly toward the bus stop, his heart carried the heavy weight of a choice that had cost him his dream, at least for today. What he didn't know was that the old man with the flat tire had seen everything. He had followed behind, curious. He stood across the street now, watching Ravi disappear down the sidewalk. And that man's name was Arvind Singhania. Ravi stood outside the towering glass building of Singania Enterprises, raindrops sliding down his cheeks, though it was hard to tell if some of them were tears. His chest rose and fell heavily, his soaked shirt clinging to his skin. His shoes squelched with each step as he walked through the sleek, spotless lobby. Heads turned. A few professionals in suits glanced at him with polite curiosity, while others looked away, not wanting to be bothered. He approached the reception desk again, file still pressed against his chest like a fragile treasure he was trying to protect. "I'm Ravi Prakash," he said breathlessly. "I had a 10 a.m. interview. I'm just a few minutes late. Please." The receptionist's face softened. She had seen him before, seen the desperation in his eyes, the sincerity. But her voice was still firm, respectful. "I remember, sir. I'm truly sorry." Panel finished and left just after 10. "There's nothing I can do now." "Just 5 minutes," Ravi said, almost pleading. "I got delayed because there was an emergency. I helped someone who collapsed. I even changed a flat tire for an old man. I didn't mean to be late. I couldn't leave them." Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She looked like she wanted to help. But after a few silent moments, she shook her head gently. They were strict about timing. They had 20 candidates scheduled back to back. Once someone is marked absent, they don't usually go back. Ravi's shoulders dropped. The weight of the rain, of his soaked clothes, of all his hopes and dreams now sat heavy in his chest. He had practiced for this moment for months. Every day, every night, he had believed it would come true. And now it had slipped right through his fingers. He turned away slowly, still holding the file, and walked toward the exit. His reflection followed him across the polished floor, wet, tired, defeated. Just before stepping out, he paused and looked back once. The lobby, the guards, the reception desk, the elevators going up to unknown floors, it all seemed so far out of reach now, like a dream that had never belonged to him in the first place. Outside, the rain had stopped. The city had returned to its noisy rhythm. Cars honked, people rushed to work, and street vendors reopened their stalls as though nothing had changed. But for Ravi, everything had. He walked to the nearest bench, sitting down heavily. His hands were trembling slightly as he opened his file and looked at the resume he had printed so carefully. The ink had run across one edge. His college certificates were wrinkled from the rain. He had nothing else lined up. This was the chance. The only one. And it was gone. He thought of his mother waiting at home, her hopeful face as she wished him good luck, the silent prayer she whispered as he left. She would ask how it went. She would expect good news. He didn't know what he would say. For a long time Ravi just sat there, watching the world go by. People in suits walked past him with phones to their ears. Children laughed and ran through puddles. Life didn't pause. Not for him. Not for anyone. And that's when doubt crept in, quietly like a shadow. Did I do the right thing? Maybe I should have walked away from that man with the flat tire. Maybe I could have still helped the old man and made it here faster. Maybe I was foolish to think kindness would matter. But even as those thoughts came, something in his heart pushed back. He remembered the look in the old man's eyes, the fragile way he had held Ravi's hand, the gratitude, the whispered thank you. And Ravi knew deep down that no job, no company, no dream was worth more than a human life. Till it didn't stop the ache. He felt like a candle that had burned itself out trying to light someone else's path, only to be left in the dark. As he stood up to leave, he heard a voice behind him. "Excuse me." He turned around slowly. It was the same receptionist. She had come outside, holding a plastic folder in her hands. "I know this may not mean much," she said softly, "but you left this on the desk." It was a printed photo, his graduation picture with his mother beside him, both smiling, both holding his certificate like it was a ticket to a better world. He took it gently and gave her a faint smile. "Thank you." She hesitated. "You know, someone from the company did see you helping that man. One of the senior executives was walking by when you were changing that tire." Ravi blinked. "Really?" She nodded. "I don't know who exactly, but he mentioned it to security when he came in. Said he was impressed." Ravi's heart stirred just slightly. "Do you think they'll?" She offered a kind smile but shrugged. "I don't know. These decisions are made by the top. But sometimes people notice more than you think." With that, she turned and went back inside. Ravi stood alone again, holding the photo, the file, and that one small hope that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't over yet. Ravi sat on the edge of his bed, a towel draped over his shoulders, still damp from the rain. The room smelled faintly of soap and old books. His file lay on the desk, drying slowly under the weak ceiling fan. The photo of his graduation rested beside it, its corners curled from moisture. His mother sat across from him, a steaming cup of chai in her hand and another gently pressed into his. "What happened?" she asked softly. He didn't look up. "I was late. The interview ended before I arrived." Her face fell, but she said nothing at first. She simply placed her hand on his, warm and comforting. "I helped 2 people on the way," he said after a pause. "An old man who collapsed, and another man with a flat tire. If I'd just kept walking, maybe I would have made it on time." His mother looked at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she leaned back slightly, took a sip of her chai, and said, "Did either of those men ask for your help?" "No," he admitted. "But they needed it. Then you did what your heart told you was right." She smiled faintly. "You made your choice. Not for reward, not for praise. But because you're a good person, Ravi. That's never the wrong choice." He sighed, staring at the floor. "But it feels like I failed. Like I let you down." She chuckled gently. "You think your dreams are all that matter to me? I watched you grow up sharing your school lunch with street kids. You'd give away your slippers if someone's feet were bleeding. You didn't lose anything today. You just reminded the world who you are." Ravi didn't reply. He sipped his chai in silence, staring out the small window at the quiet street below. Far across the city, back at the glass building of Singania Enterprises, the mood was very different. The elevator chimed softly as it reached the top floor. The doors slid open to reveal a man in his 70s, dressed now in a pressed gray suit, his hair neatly combed, shoes shining from a recent polish. He walked with a slight limp, perhaps from old injuries or perhaps just the weight of age. A few junior staff looked up from their desks, surprised to see him. "Mr. Singania," one of them murmured, rising quickly. "Relax," Irvin Singania said with a gentle smile. "I just came in for a moment." No need for ceremony. He stepped into his office, a vast room lined with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. Everything was in order, minimalist and elegant. A single painting hung behind the desk, a boy walking barefoot down a long, winding road. Irvin sat down slowly and removed his glasses. His assistant, Mr. Kapoor, knocked once before entering. "You're not due until next week, sir," Kapoor said carefully. "I was surprised to see you come in today." "I had an interesting morning," Irvin replied. "Changed a tire in the rain." Kapoor blinked. "You?" "Sir." "Not me," Irvin chuckled. "A young man. Soaked to the bone. Never seen anyone kneel in muddy water like that just to help an old stranger. Didn't ask for anything. Didn't even know who I was." Kapoor frowned. "Was he one of today's interview candidates?" Irvin nodded slowly. "He was. Arrived late. Missed his slot." "I can have HR call him back in," Kapoor offered. "We can reschedule." "No," Irvin said calmly. "That's not enough. I want to know everything about him. His background, his education, how he treats people. Not just from paper. I want to know the man, not the resume." Kapoor nodded. "Yes, sir. I'll look into it immediately." As the assistant left, Irvin leaned back in his chair. He thought of the look in Ravi's eyes. Not fear, not desperation, but concern for a stranger. A rare thing in a world spinning faster every day. He smiled to himself softly, then opened a drawer in his desk. Inside was a letter opener, a fountain pen, and a small red cloth used for blessings. He took out the pen and jotted a note on thick company stationery. "Character is louder than credentials. Follow up." Then, setting the pen down, he returned to the window. The rain had stopped. The sun was pushing its way through the clouds again. Back in the narrow alleyways of Ravi's neighborhood, the boy who thought he'd lost everything sat beside his mother, unaware that the man he helped had just turned his future in a completely unexpected direction. The morning sun broke through the curtains and painted golden stripes across the room. Ravi lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft clatter of dishes from the kitchen. His mother was humming a bhajan, as she always did when trying to stay hopeful. He hadn't told her everything. Not about the moment he'd sat outside the building thinking his life was over. Not about how badly it hurt. She had enough worries of her own. The phone rang. He didn't react at first. Maybe it was another bank message. Or a friend calling to ask about the interview. But then he saw the number. Unknown. He picked up cautiously. "Hello? Mr. Ravi Prakash?" a crisp female voice asked. "Yes. This is Anjali from Singania Enterprises. The chairman would like to meet with you today. Can you come to the main office at 11 a.m. sharp?" Ravi sat up straight. "The chairman? Me? Are you sure?" "Yes, sir. Chairman himself asked for you by name. Kindly bring your identification. You don't need to bring your resume." He blinked. Yes. I'll be there. Thank you." Call ended. For a few seconds, Ravi just sat there, heart thumping in his chest. His first thought was that maybe it was a mistake. Maybe someone else with the same name. Or maybe someone had seen him help that man. He rushed into the kitchen. "Ma," he said breathlessly, startling her mid-sip of chai. "They called me. Company." They want me to come back. She set her cup down slowly. Really? But I don't know why. They just said the chairman wants to meet me. Her eyes filled with cautious joy. Then go, Beta. And this time wear that shirt I ironed for you. The blue one. Ravi smiled, his heart warming at her excitement. This time he took extra care. Clean shave. Fresh shirt. Polished shoes. He even borrowed his neighbor's hair gel to tame his stubborn curls. And though the old file of certificates still looked a little bruised from the rain, he slipped it into his bag anyway, just in case. The city felt different today. Brighter. As if something was holding its breath, waiting. When he arrived at Singania Enterprises, the receptionist greeted him with a smile. Mr. Ravi Prakash, she said. Please follow me. He walked behind her silently through the building's glass corridors, up an elevator with mirrored walls, down a hallway lined with abstract art. Finally, they reached a large wooden door with polished brass handles. She knocked once and stepped aside. You can go in. Ravi hesitated for a moment, then pushed the door open. The room inside was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows flooded the space with sunlight. Shelves lined with books, a long desk, 2 elegant chairs, and behind it the old man. But not the frail, rain-drenched man with a flat tire. This man was dressed in a tailored gray suit. His silver hair combed neatly. His shoes shined like mirrors. He stood when Ravi entered, leaning slightly on a cane. For a second, Ravi was frozen. His mind scrambled to understand. You, Ravi said slowly. You're... Yes, the man replied with a gentle smile. The one with the flat tire. Ravi stared, speechless. My name is Arvind Singhania, the man said, extending his hand. Chairman of this company. Ravi felt like the floor had disappeared beneath him. He shook the man's hand slowly, still too stunned to speak. I watched you that day, Arvind continued. In the rain. When no one else stopped. You could have walked away. But you didn't. Ravi finally found his voice. Sir, I didn't know who you were. I was just being human, Arvind finished. In a world that's forgetting how. He gestured for Ravi to sit. I've seen degrees. I've interviewed scholars from top colleges, Arvind said, lowering himself into his chair. But rarely do I see someone whose instinct is to put others first. That's not something you can teach in business school. Ravi's eyes welled up. Sir, I missed the interview. I thought I lost everything. Arvind leaned forward. Ravi, the truth is, I don't care that you missed it. What matters is the kind of person you are when no one's watching. He opened a drawer and pulled out a single envelope, sliding it across the desk. This is an offer letter. For a position created especially for you, assistant to the chairman. You'll learn everything from operations to leadership. And if you prove yourself, which I believe you will, you'll go far. Very far. Ravi stared at the envelope. Then back at the man. Why me? He whispered. Arvind smiled. Because one day, this company will need leaders who remember what it's like to be wet in the rain and still stop for someone else. Ravi's hands trembled as he took the envelope. Thank you, sir. I won't let you down. I know you won't, Arvind said. Now go home. Tell your mother her son has just begun a journey. Ravi stood up, still overwhelmed. As he left the room, the sun burst through the windows, casting light across the floor. He didn't just walk out of that building. He walked into a future he never imagined, earned not by perfection but by heart. Ravi arrived at the office the next morning in a crisp white shirt, his shoes still bearing the faintest scuffs of their many walks. But today he didn't notice. His steps were lighter, his chest fuller. The security guard at the door, who barely acknowledged him 2 days ago, stood a little straighter and gave a small nod. Good morning, sir, the man said. Ravi smiled. Good morning. Still didn't feel real. He hadn't even fully told his mother what position he'd been offered, only that the company had given him a second chance. She'd cried, kissed his forehead, and spent the evening making his favorite aloo paratha. Now he stood once more in the executive corridor, summoned again to the top floor. This time the old man, Mr. Arvind Singhania, was waiting for him not behind the desk but by the window, hands clasped behind his back as he looked out over the city skyline. Come in, Ravi, Arvind said without turning. Close the door behind you. Ravi obeyed quietly. You slept well? The old man asked. I did, sir. Good. Because today I'd like to tell you something that may keep you up all night. He turned around slowly, a gentle smile on his face. Ravi's heart skipped a beat. Arvind gestured for him to sit on the couch near a small table. He joined him, placing 2 cups of tea on the table between them. I suppose you're still wondering why all of this happened, Arvind began. Why a chairman of a massive company would stop on a rainy street corner and then offer a high-level job to a boy who missed his interview. Ravi nodded. I've been trying to understand it, sir. I still can't. Arvind sipped his tea. Let me tell you a story. Many years ago, a young man came to this city with a broken suitcase and a pocket full of borrowed dreams. He tried for job after job, got laughed at for his accent, dismissed for his clothes, ignored because of where he came from. Ravi leaned in. One day, Arvind continued, he fainted from hunger on a footpath. A stranger stopped, gave him food, sat with him like he mattered. That one act changed the direction of his life. He looked up, his eyes steady. That boy was me. Ravi swallowed hard. I built this company from nothing. And I told myself if I ever had the power, I'd look past the polished shoes and fancy resumes. I'd find people whose hearts were stronger than their words. People who wouldn't walk past a stranger in need. People like you. Ravi's eyes shimmered. You were testing me. I didn't plan to, Arvind said. I was genuinely stuck. The flat tire was real. The rain, the struggle. But when you came along, when I saw you kneel in the dirt without knowing who I was, without thinking twice, I knew. Knew what? That this company needs more men like you. Men with integrity when no one's watching. You didn't just pass a test, Ravi. You revealed your truth. And that matters more to me than any degree. Ravi couldn't speak for a moment. The weight of the moment sat in his chest like fire, warm and overwhelming. I thought I lost everything that day, Ravi said finally. I thought I'd failed my family. Failed myself. You lost a job interview, Arvind replied. But you gained something far greater. You proved you're the kind of man who does what's right, even when it costs him everything. Ravi looked down at his hands. But what if I fail here? I've never been in such a big place before. I don't even know how to speak English fluently sometimes. Then you'll learn, Arvind said, smiling. Because you've already mastered the one thing I can't teach, character. There was a long silence between them. Kind of silence that speaks louder than words. Then Arvind stood, walked to a shelf and pulled down a small framed quote. He handed it to Ravi. It read, "A man's worth is not measured by how high he climbs, but by how many he lifts on the way up." That was my mentor's favorite saying, Arvind said. Now it's yours. Ravi stood slowly, his hands gripping the frame. He didn't know what future awaited him at Singhania Enterprises, whether he would succeed, fail, or fumble his way through unfamiliar corridors. But he knew this, he had been seen, for who he really was. And in a world that judged so quickly, so harshly, that alone was a gift. Thank you, sir, Ravi whispered. Make me proud, Arvind said. And one day, make someone else feel the way you feel now. As Ravi stepped out of the office, the halls no longer felt intimidating. The walls didn't feel cold. They felt like the beginning of something greater than he had ever imagined. Months passed like chapters in a new book. And for Ravi, every page was unfamiliar, challenging, and transformative. He no longer took the crowded bus every morning. Now, a modest company vehicle picked him up just after sunrise. His mother still made him breakfast, still kissed his forehead before he left, though now she did it with pride shimmering in her eyes instead of quiet worry. Singhania Enterprises, Ravi was no longer just a name on a list. He had become a presence, quiet, sincere, dependable. The staff who once barely noticed him now nodded with respect when he passed by. His desk was just outside the chairman's office, a place reserved for someone who was no longer just an assistant but an apprentice in the truest sense. Arvind Singhania had kept his promise. He mentored Ravi personally. Every week they sat together for hours, not just to discuss numbers or presentations but to talk about vision, ethics, failure, and leadership. "You don't lead with your head alone," Arvind would say. "You lead with your heart too. And the courage to listen when no one is speaking." Ravi listened. Always. He filled notebooks with lessons, asked questions, stayed late, and volunteered for tasks no one else wanted. He made mistakes. He misunderstood instructions. Once, he misspelled an executive's name in a company-wide memo and wanted to resign out of shame. Arvind just laughed and said, "If that's your biggest failure so far, you're still ahead of most." Then one afternoon, nearly a year since that rainy day, Ravi was called into the boardroom. He expected a small team meeting. Instead, the room was filled with department heads, senior executives, and at the far end, Mr. Singhania, standing beside an easel covered by a dark cloth. "Come in, Ravi," Arvind said, his voice carrying across the quiet room. Ravi stepped forward nervously. "I called everyone here," Arvind continued, "because today marks something important, not just for me, but for the future of this company." He removed the cloth with a sweep of his hand. Behind it, a large photograph was mounted, a candid shot of Ravi, soaked in the rain, bent beside the broken car, helping a frail old man who no one recognized then as the company's powerful chairman. Gasps rippled through the room. "Some of you know this story. Most of you don't," Arvind said. "That day, Ravi didn't know who I was. But he helped anyway. Not for reward. Not for recognition. Just because it was right." He turned to Ravi. "This company has thrived because of innovation and strategy. But going forward, it must also be known for its humanity. And you, Ravi, will be its symbol." Ravi swallowed hard. "You are no longer just an assistant," Arvind continued. "You are now head of outreach and ethics, a department I created with you in mind. You'll build teams that work with schools, with villages, with underprivileged youth. And yes, you'll still learn the ropes of the business because I still plan to mentor you. But now you'll do the same for others." The room erupted in applause. Ravi stood frozen, his heart thudding like a drum. "But, sir," he said softly, stepping forward, "I still have so much to learn. I don't deserve—" "You don't have to be perfect to deserve purpose," Arvind interrupted. "You just have to be willing." Ravi looked at the photo again. That version of him, drenched, uncertain, late, had no idea what he was stepping into. But now, standing in a boardroom filled with powerful people, he finally understood. Kindness wasn't weakness. It was the seed of something unshakable. Later that night, Ravi walked home instead of taking the car. The city lights blinked above him, the same way they had the night he thought his future had ended. He reached his street, saw his mother waiting outside wearing her favorite shawl. He held up the appointment letter. She didn't need to read it. She just opened her arms, and he stepped into them like he had when he was a child. As they stood there in the soft glow of their doorway, Ravi realized something. He hadn't just gotten a job. He had earned a legacy. One that began with a flat tire and ended with a future no resume could ever have predicted. 'Cause sometimes when you stop to help a stranger, the universe stops to help you back.